They took an exceptional moment to decide that they would not be journalists, that they would instead be public health messengers. And the result is that Canada's national broadcaster has morphed into a state broadcaster. It's promoting government policy without question, while censoring, belittling, and shaming learned Canadians who dare to object and attempt to inform us of the truth.
Hi, it's John and welcome to the channel. It is 4:30 a.m. It is Monday, November the 10th. I hope you're having a great start to your Monday morning, a great start to your week as well. And if you're here and subscribed, you are one of more than 40,000 people who have subscribed to this channel. I do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please click on subscribe and you can help me get to 41,000. So I showed a clip off the top of this video. I'm going to show you the whole thing in just a moment. It's from the National Citizens Inquiry regarding COVID, and it's how the CBC propagandized you and became an arm of the government in spreading misinformation to you regarding COVID. And why am I talking about this today? Well, I want to link it in with climate and COVID, because the same tactics they used during COVID are about to be inflicted on you when it comes to climate. All right. So today marks the opening of COP30. In Brazil, November 10th to the 21st of November. And this is where thousands upon thousands of people will go to Brazil to be fed amazing food, to fly in on their private jets, to lecture you about using fossil fuels. As I say, climate change is about people who live large telling the rest of us how to live small. Well, COP is happening right now, and one of the things they're going to do is propagandize you and censor you. And I almost see on the horizon a point where I might get a strike on this channel for even questioning climate change, because it's going to be a full court press, folks. So let me ask you this before I get to a story from Daniel Greenfield at Front Page Magazine, and I show you the rest of that clip. When COVID started, were you concerned? I mean, right at the beginning, I was. I have to say I was. They tell you there's a worldwide pandemic and millions of people could die. And then I was told that we had 2 weeks to flatten the curve. If we just do this 2-week thing, we can end this and we all get back to our regular lives. But it ended up being, what, almost 3 years? But anyway, after 2 weeks, I went to South Centre Mall here in Calgary. I went to Market Mall with my wife with a mask on. They were like ghost towns. Hardly any of the stores had reopened after 2 weeks. And then I was told I had to stand on a dot. And then I was told that I had to social distance. But the thing that pushed me over the edge, that got me thinking that I was some kind of lab experiment, like I was a rat in a maze, and that somebody was watching me and taking notes, learning from what was going on and how they were manipulating people, was the arrows in grocery stores. Remember, you had to walk in a specific direction, because if you went the other direction for some reason, you were more likely to catch COVID. They called it coronavirus at that time. I knew I was being played, and you probably did too. They're going to use the same type of tactics when it comes to climate. Let's go over to this article from Daniel Greenfield. I'm going to read some of this to you. All right. UN turns COVID censorship to climate censorship. A new wave of censorship and mass propaganda is coming. COP30, the latest troubled UN climate conference taking place in the Brazilian rainforest, has been notable for its low turnout of world leaders, with many, including President Trump, staying away for the expensive hotel rooms and the debut of the UN's climate censorship machine. Warmunism, the false claim that human industry is dooming the planet, has lost the support of the United States government and even former supporters like Microsoft founder Bill Gates, and is being propped up by lies, intimidation, and censorship. The purpose of the UN's Global Initiative for Information Integrity on Climate Change is to take the propaganda and censorship globally by getting as many world governments as possible to agree to the UN framework for pushing global warming and silencing its critics. The Global Initiative for Information Integrity on Climate Change was announced last year at the G20 Leaders Summit in Rio de Janeiro under the auspices of Brazil's radical and illegitimate leftist government, which has taken the regional lead in locking up political opponents. The corrupt Silva regime has also taken the lead in what it calls the fight against disinformation by tackling so-called disinformation campaigns that are delaying and derailing climate action. By disinformation, they mean any views opposed to their program. I'm going to skip ahead here, link in the description. At COP30, the various UN delegations will be expected to embrace and begin initiating the Global Initiative for Information Integrity on climate change plan. UNESCO's 2025 call for partnerships defines its program around Orwellian buzzwords like advancing information integrity, fake news fighters, mapping the socio-political disinformation industry, and strengthening media capacities to fight climate disinformation. But in reality, come down to manufacturing mass propaganda and denouncing any opposing view as disinformation. The Call Advisory Group is fronted by Climate Action Against Disinformation, CAAD, which proposes winning the argument by having social media censor opposing views or what it describes as harmful false content. CAD's proposal, including demonetizing anyone who questions its political agenda, forcing social media platforms to instead promote its agendas, unionizing moderators to ensure that they are following the political party line, deranking anyone who disagrees, and allowing activists to report opposing views for immediate censorship. The targeting would extend even to media outlets who question the agenda and state officials, including potentially members of the Trump administration. Again, jump forward a little bit. The Global Initiative for Information Integrity on Climate Change is based on the UN's Global Digital Compact, which set out to track political opposition by calling on social media platforms to turn over information to its researchers in order to build an evidence base on how to address mis- and disinformation and hate speech that can inform government and industry policies. Euphemisms such as global information integrity and platform transparency are Orwellian euphemisms for monitoring, identifying, and eliminating political dissent by the United Nations. The more countries buy into the global censorship agenda, the more human rights disappear. Elements of the climate censorship machine had already been deployed to suppress dissent during the COVID era. Verified, a joint initiative of the UN and an organization backed by the Rockefeller Foundations, was launched in response to the COVID crisis and accompanying infodemic and still runs ads urging people to wear masks. Verified disguises its content as not coming from the UN, a policy that it euphemistically describes as having a flexible brand identity that is deliberately unbranded to ensure that influencers and trusted messengers could speak to their audiences in a way that resonated best with them. Translated, the UN laundered its propaganda through social media influencers without revealing that an international agency was behind it. These influencers are known as verified champions who put out messages warning social media followers to distrust other information sources even as they were misleading them about where their own messages were coming from. That's real misinformation. Now Verified is turning itself into Verified for Climate and boasts that Verified floods digital channels, flooding digital channels with propaganda from undisclosed sources that are laundered through influencers is the kind of disinformation tactic that the UN claims to be fighting, even while setting up its own disinformation network to do exactly what it's accusing its opponents of doing. If there is a real climate emergency, and that is a fact backed by science, why are the UN and its allies unable to establish it in an honest debate without having to resort to censoring the opposition? If the UN can't even discuss the weather without mass propaganda and censorship, what sort of free speech and freedom of opinion is it willing to tolerate? The answer, unsurprisingly, is none. Mass propaganda and censorship, much like COVID, they declare an emergency and barrage the public with propaganda while demanding that social media monopolies censor any disagreement, otherwise people will die. After successfully implementing this program with COVID, they want to eliminate any dissent on their environmentalist program. All they have to do is get the rest of the world and a few .coms to go along. And that's where we are now. Again, I wonder how long it will be before I'm unable to talk about this on the YouTube channel. You know, it's really fascinating. There are still people pushing masks. There are still people pushing COVID shots. Here he is, the boy wonder himself, getting his COVID shot. It's interesting, here in Alberta, you have to pay $100 to get a COVID shot now. The left went after Danielle Smith mercilessly because you had to pay $100 because it's a public health issue, don't you know? Now, people who have the money to get a COVID shot aren't even going to get a COVID shot because the number of people getting COVID shots in Alberta is way down right now because they just simply don't work. They call them safe and effective. And Lord knows whether they were either. But again, Justin Trudeau is still doing this. Now, I want to take you back to that story regarding the COVID misinformation. Now, this is the National Citizens Inquiry, and this is 2 minutes, and this will blow your freaking mind.
I started noticing that something very different was happening at the CBC.
Who were we to deliberately withhold information the public needed to know and had a right to know in order to make a decision based on informed consent about their health?
They took an exceptional moment to decide that they would not be journalists, that they would instead be public health messengers. And the result is that Canada's national broadcaster has morphed into a state broadcaster. It's promoting government policy without question, while censoring, belittling, and shaming learned Canadians who dare to object and attempt to inform us of the truth.
Canadians were starting to see this, and they were calling us out on it. All of a sudden, the term anti-vaxxer came up.
That's because this was not news gathering, it was propaganda.
And to define propaganda, it's information, ideas, opinions, or images that give one part of an argument, which are broadcast, published, in order to influence a person's opinion.
Bad journalism is incompetence, but propaganda is a betrayal.
We were clearly pushing propaganda.
And we expect them to tell us the truth because they've done it for 50 or 60 years.
And I was disturbed and alarmed about the language that was being used in some of our editorial meetings. The CBC was still demonizing the unvaccinated as a danger to public safety. CBC is not impartial. It is not independent. How could you ignore this?
And that's what CBC has done. It's betrayed us all.
Will we get the CBC, our public broadcaster, back? I don't know. But I do know that more journalists need to stand up, speak out, and stand firm as a truth teller.
They ask the question, will you get the CBC, the public broadcaster, back? I'll answer that question in just a moment. But you've been propagandized about climate for years. There are lots of little kids. They're taught this in school. This is a political movement. This is a religion to a lot of people. I call it the climate cult. And share this video because you don't know how long it's actually going to be up. This could be banned very soon. You're going to get a full-on press over the next couple of weeks because of COP30. They did it to you with COVID, folks, and they're going to use the same tactics on you when it comes to the climate thing. And they learned a lot through COVID. I think the Liberals learned a lot through COVID and how they could easily manipulate people with slogans during the last election campaign. You find a target, you pick a target, you focus on it. It's very much like Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. It's one of his rules. You pick the target, you focus on it, you hammer it over and over again. Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. He's the threat to everything. And people seem to forget the fact that we had 10 years of government with the Liberals that put us in this predicament in the first place. We've talked about it here before. You tell them elbows up and then they vote for the party that caused all the problem in the first place. They don't use their minds. They think emotionally and not logically like you and I do. Right? Here's the National Citizens Inquiry, excuse me, and a tweet from them. Okay, CBC didn't just get COVID wrong. They withheld information Canadians needed to make informed medical decisions. That isn't journalism, it's propaganda. They demonized the unvaccinated. They ran messaging designed to enforce one side of the argument. They weaponized the term anti-vaxxer as a shield against scrutiny, not to inform the public, but to silence them. Bad journalism is incompetence. Propaganda is betrayal. CBC became the public health messaging arm, not an independent press, and they knew they were shaping public opinion, not reporting facts. CBC is not impartial. It's not independent. The question now is simple. Will Canadians ever get their public broadcaster back, or did CBC cross a line they can return from? And this is where the video was posted in the first place. And of course, they use the word experts over and over again, like they do when it comes to the climate situation, right? Experts say, experts say. Now, the question here is, will Canadians ever get their public broadcaster back? No, because of this. And this is something that the Liberals have promised. And if we continue down the road with the Liberals for very much longer, reinforcing CBC Radio Canada, protecting Canadian voices, this institution is a cornerstone of our national identity. To not defend it is to cede the ability to tell our own stories, to tell the Liberal stories. And then down here is the kicker. Did they not give $150 million in this recent budget? More to the CBC? I do believe they did. Enshrine and protect CBC Radio Canada by introducing legislation to establish statutory funding. Be prepared for a full court press when it comes to propaganda on climate over the next couple of weeks and for the next who knows how long, until they silence people from talking about this. Here's a quote from Richard Feynman, pretty smart guy, theoretical physicist. Science is the belief in the ignorance of the experts. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't believe the propaganda. Always think things through. Always be a skeptic. Always. I have about climate from the very beginning, and they haven't convinced me yet because I think logically, not emotionally, like the left. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. I will see you in the next one. Please share this one because who knows, it will probably get throttled on YouTube and fewer people will see it. See you next time.